For years, the story in tech has been simple. Move to the cloud. It's the future, right? But a really interesting report from the research firm Virtualization Options LLC has uncovered a trend that's, well, it's turning that whole idea on its head. Some companies are actually leaving the cloud. We're going to dive into why that's happening and what it means when the promise of the cloud doesn't quite match reality.
It just doesn't sound right, does it? I mean, we've all been told the cloud is the answer for scalability, for efficiency, for everything. So why on earth would a company pack up its digital bags and move back out? It's a huge question, and the answer is surprisingly complex. So let's dig in.
All right, first up, let's get a handle on what we're actually talking about with this cloud exodus.
The official term for this is cloud repatriation. Basically, it's the process of pulling your applications and your data out of public clouds, think AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and bringing them back home, either to your own servers on-premise or into a private cloud. And look, this isn't a small decision. It's a huge, often painful choice. So what could possibly be forcing their hand?
Well, it turns out there's often a hidden villain in this story. Let's talk about the main culprit, technical debt.
So what is technical debt? You can think of it like taking out a loan. It's what happens when you choose the quick and easy fix right now instead of the better, more solid solution that would take more time. Every one of those shortcuts builds up debt, and sooner or later, that debt comes due, and you have to pay it back with interest in the form of extra work, painful redesigns, and a whole lot of headaches.
This analogy from the report just nails it. Imagine you're building a house. You use cheap drywall, you cut corners on the wiring, you skip the proper foundation work. You might save some cash and move in faster, but you just know that down the line you'll be spending a fortune fixing cracks, dealing with leaks, and maybe even rebuilding the whole thing. That's exactly what's happening with software.
Okay, so how exactly does this debt totally derail your grand plans for the cloud?
Here's the thing. The cloud acts like a giant magnifying glass for your technical debt. It takes all those little problems and blows them up into massive ones. You can see it right here. Things that seem normal, like rushed projects or not having enough experts on the team, they lead to these disastrous consequences in the cloud. We're talking about costs that spiral out of control, glaring security holes, and systems that just can't keep up.
And the first place you're going to feel the pain, your wallet. That whole pay-for-what-you-use promise of the cloud, it gets completely twisted when technical debt is in the picture. The result is just total sticker shock when that monthly bill arrives.
And here's exactly how that happens. Bad, inefficient code, a classic sign of tech debt, is hungry. It needs way more computing power than it should. So you end up over-provisioning. You're basically paying for a massive V8 engine when a little four-cylinder would have been plenty if the code was clean. And pretty soon, your team isn't thinking about how to save money anymore. They're just in full-on firefighting mode, trying to keep the lights on.
And if the costs don't force you out, the security risks might. Technical debt is like leaving your digital doors and windows wide open. Every shortcut, every unpatched piece of old code is a potential welcome mat for attackers.
And this part is absolutely critical. We're talking about old code with known unpatched vulnerabilities just sitting there, or services that were set up in a hurry and are now misconfigured, exposing sensitive data. And if your business needs to comply with standards like HIPAA for healthcare or PCI DSS for payments, well, good luck. Technical debt can make passing those audits practically impossible. For many, that risk is the final straw.
All right, enough of the doom and gloom. This isn't a hopeless situation, so let's talk about how you can fight back and start taming this beast.
The key is to be strategic. You can't fix everything at once, so don't even try. First, you have to prioritize. Figure out which pieces of debt are causing the most business pain, the ones slowing you down or costing you the most money. Then, you document it. Write it down, track it. Make it a real, tangible thing you can attack. And finally, and this is crucial, you have to actually allocate a budget to fix it. It needs real resources, not just good intentions.
So what does that look like day to day? It's about building good habits. Things like regular code reviews to catch problems and improve quality. Setting up automated testing to act as a safety net, catching bugs before they cause damage. And then strategically refactoring your systems. That's just a fancy way of saying you go in and consciously clean up the mess, paying down the principal on that technical debt you've accumulated.
Okay, so that's how you deal with the debt you already have. But how do you get on the cloud the right way so you never even have to think about making a return trip?
It all comes down to being proactive. It's not a one-and-done project. You need to be constantly assessing your environment, hunting for waste and risk. You have to actively optimize your resources. Don't just set it and forget it. And you've got to establish governance. Clear rules of the road that everyone follows for how you manage costs and security.
But here's the real secret. Technology is only half the puzzle. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't have people with the right skills in cloud architecture, in security, and financial management, it's all going to fall apart. Investing in your team and building that in-house expertise is absolutely non-negotiable.
Now, to see how this all plays out in the real world, let's look at a quick tale of two companies. First up is Company A. This is our cautionary tale.
So, why did they fail? Simple. They did what we call a lift and shift. They basically just copied and pasted all of their existing problems, all that technical debt, directly into the cloud. Their old, clunky code immediately created performance nightmares. The security shortcuts they'd taken over the years became massive, gaping vulnerabilities, and because they had no real plan to fix any of the root causes, leaving the cloud was their only way out.
Now, in stark contrast, let's look at Company B. They took a much smarter approach. Company B was proactive from the get-go. They treated their technical debt not as some little IT problem, but as a major business risk that had to be managed. They actually invested time and money into refactoring their systems before or during their cloud move. And the result? Huge cost savings, way better performance, and a cloud strategy that was perfectly aligned with what their teams and their technology could actually deliver.
So let's just quickly wrap up the key takeaways here. First, technical debt isn't just a geeky developer term. It's a real business problem. And it's one of the biggest, though often hidden, reasons companies leave the cloud. Second, you have to manage it. You can't just ignore it and hope for the best because it will catch up with you. And finally, your cloud strategy has to be based in reality. It must be aligned with the actual, real-world capabilities of your team. That part is non-negotiable.
And that brings us to a final thought for you to chew on. Every company's journey to the cloud is a kind of story. It has characters, a plot, and a goal. So as you think about your own organization's story, it's worth asking yourself, is technical debt the secret villain just waiting in the wings for a dramatic plot twist? Thanks for tuning in to The Explainer.